Hi listeners, Jason here. We are excited to finally announce registrations for the biggest psych health and safety community event ever. The inaugural The Psych Health and Safety Conference will be held at the Sofitel Wentworth, Sydney, June 19 to 20, 2024 and offer concurrent virtual attendance. It'll feature live podcast recordings with OG researchers including Christina Maslach and Michael Leiter of Burnout fame, Psych Health and Safety USA podcast host I. David Daniels, Australian super experts including the likes of David Burrows, a special 10-year anniversary integrated approaches to workplace mental health panel with authors Tony LaMontagne, Angela Martin and Kat Page, hand-picked case studies from organisations doing it well, and a very special interview with plaintiff Zaggy Kozarov by Catherine Dunlop on that High Court case which we previously covered on the podcast. This event will sell out. Get in quick to secure tickets at early bird prices for the 2-day conference, pre-conference masterclasses, and the VIP dinner. The first 200 in-person registrations also get a copy of her latest book, The Burnout Challenge, signed by Christina Maslach herself. Find out more and register at www.psychhealthandsafetyconference.com. Now, on to this episode.
From Flourish DX, this is the Psych Health and Safety Podcast. With workplace mental health becoming a safety prerogative, this is the source of information on psychological injury prevention and health promotion.
Hi, and welcome to a special episode of the Psych Health and Safety Podcast. It's our 200th episode. My name is Jason Banshee, and I'm one of the hosts of the show. The aim of this podcast is to rapidly increase the knowledge and application of psychological health and safety in workplaces worldwide. To help celebrate our 200th episode, we've invited our UK co-host Peter Kelly to join us today and decided to use this special episode to make an exciting announcement. But before I make this announcement, allow me to introduce my co-host, Joelle Mitchell. How did Joelle?
Hi, Jason. It's getting a little bit late in the day for us today, so to have a friendly time overlap with the UK. So I might be fading a little bit by now.
Yeah, it's been a long day and I've still got a dinner that we've got to do with a client who's over at the moment, who we're actually going to be interviewing on the podcast in the next couple of days. So that's going to be great.
Yep.
But yeah, it's been a long day, but look, these are the accommodations. These are the accommodations that we need to make for our UK friends, right? So yeah, staying up late for them.
Schmoozing the clients.
Hey, it's a hard job. Someone's going to do
founder.
it. Someone's going to do it, Joelle. Let's face it, you'd prefer to be at home reading a book than out to dinner.
At the restaurant you're going to, yeah.
It's a good one for tourists, though, we agreed. So, yeah, got a good view of the city.
It's got a view and that, leans on that rather than the quality of its.
But, Joelle, you haven't been there in some years like me either. So I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised tonight.
Classic optimistic Jason.
Anyway, Joelle, it's our 200th
200 episodes.
I can't believe you put up with me for 200 episodes.
Man, I've put up with you for more than that.
Yeah, this is it, right? So we do long format, so probably on average just close to an hour per episode, right? So it's like 200 hours of recording, a little bit less because we've had some Christmas replays where we've replayed previous content. But really, that's only a small snapshot of our work together. Really, it's like in the thousands of hours that we've probably spent with
Definitely.
each other.
Yeah.
You've done something that many other women couldn't do, Joelle.
Just people, Jason.
Just people, yeah.
Not even women.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So well done. Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, and congratulations to you. Also.
What for? Putting up with you?
Yes.
And I guess, 200 episodes, right? Like, I guess when you started, I remember, when I interviewed you for the job, pitched you for the job to come work with me. I didn't mention that I'd be getting you to do a podcast because I actually came up with the idea for doing the podcast maybe a week or two before you started.
Yeah, I remember you sent me a text message going, I've had a great idea. We're going to do a podcast and you're going to be my co-host. I was like, sure.
And that's pretty much how our relationship has been since, right, at work. Hey, Joelle, I've got this idea. Like, we should do it.
Yep. And I'm like, all right, how do we make it work?
Yep. And fortunately, some of those ideas are short-lived because, like, they don't work and we give up on them pretty quickly. But the podcast, right? It's worked. I mean, what we've done is created an amazing community around this topic of psych health and safety, and it's something that continues to energize us, right? Which means we keep creating episodes until we get cancelled, which might happen, knowing me. So.
Well, we can always edit these, unlike the live streamed ones.
Which is why we don't do live stream ones anymore.
Yeah. That might be one of the reasons. Yeah,
it's risk management. So any reflections on the 200 episodes that we've had to date?
Probably similar to when we've had other sort of milestone kinds of episodes, just really reflecting on what a fantastic opportunity it is to be able to have these in-depth conversations with people who are really industry leaders in their field from all around the world. And it's so much more valuable, I think, than like meeting somebody at a conference and sort of having a 5-minute conversation with them in between sessions, or even, watching them deliver a keynote. This is just, I feel like we're able to get a lot more depth into the discussion and sort of draw more insights out of them and that sort of thing. So, it's just been a really amazing opportunity to be able to have an unexpected amount of access to these industry leaders and experts, which has been just a really great learning opportunity.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing, right? Like the people that we've had on the podcast, like Kerry Cooper and Michael Leiter and Tony LaMontagne and all these amazing people. Someone is pointing at himself at the moment. But
I wonder who that could be.
I don't know. But we've had all these amazing people, right? And often it's just reaching out to them over LinkedIn or something going, hey, would you mind coming on our podcast and having a chat? And like you say, the access has been amazing. And it's something I'm looking forward to continuing in the next year. And I guess one of the things I'm hoping for over the next 100 episodes or 200 episodes is that we actually get more examples of people doing good work within businesses. I think definitely when we started, what we're talking about was a very bleeding edge and not common practice. But we're seeing, particularly in Australia, on the back of regulations, more companies are being drawn to do this. They have to. And so we're starting to see some examples of companies doing it well, or at least elements of it well, right, as they start to begin their journey around psychosocial safety. So I'm really hoping we see a lot more practitioners coming on board and sharing what they're doing.
Yeah, and I've noticed also that there seems to be an upsurge in research in this topic as well, that's sort of starting to be published probably in the last few months. So I'm quite excited to see what researchers are doing and look for opportunities to bring them on and share their research as well.
Yeah, speaking of which, it might be worthwhile making one exciting announcement is that we have decided to experiment, at least. We'll see how well it goes. We're going to start off with a cracker for this new kind of format on the podcast. We wanted to give researchers who are doing great research in this field a platform to share their research that's not sitting behind a paywall, and to take their journal articles and to put them into plain language where people can actually understand what did they find and how would they apply that. To start with that, we've convinced Tony LaMontagne, one of our favorite one of our favorite guests of all time, and one of our most popular episodes of all time. He's going to come on and talk to one of the recent papers that he's done. So the idea is, can we try and get these academics to explain their research in under 15 minutes? That would be the challenge for Joelle and I. But if we keep it to just one journal article, then hopefully we can do that. But we'll hopefully start to sprinkle in some of these shorter snippets of research and how do we apply that to practice in between our regular long format episodes, which will continue to air on Tuesday, Australian time.
So that's an exciting announcement, but not the exciting announcement that you foreshadowed earlier.
No, that's right. So, we've learned a lot in the last 200 episodes. Thank you for those who've joined us on the journey. I know there's some diehards out there that have listened to every single episode. So you're a better person than me, because I haven't listened to some episodes that we've put out. So well done. We've got a commitment that we're going to continue to do this because we love doing it and we love the community that we've been able to build around this. And we love, like Joel said, the access to all these amazing people that the podcast selfishly gives us. But at least we're sharing that then with other people.
And speaking of amazing people, shall we introduce Peter Kelly to join us? How are you today, Peter?
I was not going to introduce him that way, Joel, but
sorry.
he's a good
you weren't.
he's a good bloke.
It's only 9 o'clock in the morning as well. Yeah, I'm all right actually. I'm missing the sun though. It was 38 degrees 2 weeks ago. I was on the beach in Melbourne, enjoying myself, and here I am. The sun just came out for a couple of minutes, and it's gone back in now. So yeah, welcome to the north of England. So 5 degrees at the moment, Jason. 5 degrees.
Well, you left at the right time, Pete, because we've been suffering through our second heat wave in 2 weeks, and it's like over 40 degrees, or for our North American counterparts, it's over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, like pretty much every single day. It is hot, so you left at the right time.
Even with that easterly that comes in the afternoon, is it still hot then?
Yep, it just blows hot air. That's all it does. So it's pretty warm at the moment. But how was your trip, Pete?
Yeah, it was really good actually. I met up with some great people, and had lots of talks about psych health and safety, and I guess puts them in the geek category really, because all of us on this call, we pretty much live and breathe it, and it's part of what we're trying to do is to change the world of work, make it a better place for people to come. So it's great that you can travel around the world and meet people who are exactly the same as you, or maybe not exactly the same, but
nobody's like you, Peter.
Okay, yeah. Just for the record, I am wearing a very nice shirt that I dressed up for this one because it's a special one. So it's good in that sense, and I think lots of things are changing, aren't they? We're seeing a real move in well-being about trying to make sure we get clear return on investment and evidence basis for it. And actually, what I'm seeing, Jason, and this is going to be one of our future podcasts, is some of these well-being roles that people were going into a couple of years ago. There's some of them are disappearing now. And actually, we've got we have a challenge here, and I think it's a great opportunity to say, well, actually, psych health and safety, when done properly, will improve your well-being. Will also give you good evidence that actually where we can make changes. So, I think it's an exciting time. It's just taken a long time to get here, or 25 years of our journey. Collectively pushing something that people said wasn't there, but it's a great time to be in this work, I believe.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing a record number of, in Australia in particular, job ads going up for health and safety roles or HR roles that have a psychosocial risk management element to it. So it's really interesting that people who want to work in the field now have jobs that they can go into. But we need to learn from, I guess, some of the limitations, I guess, of previous approaches, right, to mental health in the workplace. Like you said, Pete, some of these wellbeing roles are drying up because, like, maybe they weren't capturing the right evidence about, like, their program effectiveness. And we need to make sure that we are collecting good evidence as we progress through doing psychological health and safety well, to demonstrate, like, the value that we're providing. And like you say, if we do it right, it's not just a health benefit, but we should also be able to have business benefits as well in terms of improved productivity and retention of employees.
Yeah, and I mean that's any interaction on a health and safety level, which is looking for prevention, will have cost benefits to the organisation. And one of the things as an inspector we're constantly was looking at was the best way of preventing, not actually just dealing with an issue once it's arisen. What do you do to prevent? So I think that's really important. Like, there are massive benefits from seeking prevention, and thankfully the World Health Organization now, in looking at mental health at work, they're saying, well, let's prevent, promote, protect, and support. Feels a lot like primary, secondary, and tertiary. Well, that was very difficult to explain to people, wasn't it? Whereas actually, if you're saying that you do prevention is the ultimate that you're trying to do, but you can achieve that by having the appropriate health and well-being and psych health and safety initiatives in place. It creates a protection between the employer and the job. So I think that's another thing that has come out over the last sort of year and a half, which is helping to seal people's sort of information and concentration on what they need to focus on. Right?
So, Peter, you've been hosting the UK stream of this podcast for about a year now. What have you learnt over that time?
Oh, geez, what haven't I learned? I've learned that there are people out there in our space that are innovative and prepared to stick their head above the parapet and talk about psych health and safety. I mean, I had an exceptional co-host in Hayley, and she was it was great to bounce off each other, and just a really enthusiastic, intelligent analyst of what was going on in the world out there. And we had some really great podcasts where we looked around the themes, like actually well-being coming out of lockdown was the big new thing. It wasn't really new. It's just that there were a lot more apps that came out. And what we discovered over our conversations is actually an app is not enough. It's not just simply about putting an app. It's about putting a system in place. And we put people on that are challenging, and we put people on that, have alternative opinions, because I think that's important to have that discussion and that debate around psych health and safety, and around mental health, and where does the responsibility lie for personal mental health and corporate mental health. And yeah, that's been brilliant. And we've tried to work alongside people that thinkers in this space, in equality and diversity, allyship, and others. So yeah, it's been great. You actually learn from all the people that you interview for the podcast. I think that's the important thing. We're constantly on a journey of learning and discovering new things and thinking, geez, that's really interesting. And then you go off after the podcast and then you explore that. So I've, it's taken me down routes probably I wouldn't have gone down instinctively, but having had the opportunity to do the podcast and to particularly, look at well-being in a really structured way. We've looked at well-being as well as psych health and safety, and I think we can do that, because actually there's the elements sort of mixed together. But what we're really looking for is the organisational prevention bit, which, by the way, I think you can do with well-being, but at the moment the focus is exclusively on, a lot of the time is on individuals. So I've learned a lot, and I've really enjoyed co-hosting with Hayley, and so it's been good.
Well, here's to the next 12 months.
Yes, indeed, with a different shirt every time.
Well, you've got a few episodes to catch up on, Joelle and myself, Pete, but we've got some help. This is part of the exciting announcement, or really the exciting announcement. So like you said, you were co-hosting the UK stream of the podcast with Hayley Farrell. Unfortunately, Hayley had to step down, and so we've been on the hunt for a suitable replacement for Hayley. And that's no mean feat, because like you say, Hayley had amazing insights and really knows what's what, and very articulate as well. But in our search, we have uncovered, I think, probably the perfect replacement, because not only does she know a lot, if not one of the most knowledgeable people on the subject of psych health and safety in the world, but she knows Pete and was willing to put up with him on a podcast co-hosting with him. So it was a very narrow field. So we're very fortunate that she said yes, that she would come on and co-host with Pete. So I'd like to very warmly welcome the newest co-host of the Psych Health and Safety podcast, who'll be helping Pete on the UK stream, Miss Kate Field.
Woo!
Wow. What an intro. Thank you. And I've got some big shoes to fill after Hayley, but I'm delighted to be here and to work with you and always to work with Pete. We always have a riot. We will try and rein it in as best we can so that we maintain the quality of content and not just have a natter.
I do believe this is the only podcast in the world with 2 ex-regulators on together.
Well, no, three ex-regulators.
3 ex-regulators. So this is actually, so we are covering the world of regulation here. So
I don't know if that would be a draw card for most people reading that in the
Yeah, let me stick.
You might put people off.
We won't lead with that.
Leave the marketing to me, Pete. Just giving her.
I love a good bit. I love a good bit of regulation. You know what I mean?
So Kate, we have you have been a guest on our podcast before, but for listeners who maybe haven't listened to that particular episode or who can't remember, can you tell us please about your professional career?
Yeah, sure. So I've been working in health, safety and wellbeing for a couple of decades now. I don't like admitting it because it ages me. Oh, well, no, I didn't. Obviously, I started when I was 5, so it's fine. So as Pete alluded to, I started principally my health and safety career working for HSE as a regulator in the UK. And during that time, we launched the stress management standards. And I just thought they were the best thing in the world. For me, it was kind of the missing piece of the puzzle because, you know, there's been the focus on safety. I'd started to do quite a lot of work on health issues, but more around sort of physical health, so asbestos related diseases, other sort of respiratory diseases, dermatitis, all those sorts of things. But for me, it was always about what's the culture of the organization? Why aren't organizations understanding that if they're going to do a really good job of whatever it is they're doing, manufacturing, service industry, whatever it is, they've got to look after their people. And that comes down to the culture of the organization. And a lot of that stems, I think, from the psychological approach an organization takes. So when we introduced the stress management standards, I was thrilled. I thought it would really revolutionize the world of work. And I did a huge amount of work at the time to promote them. I did a lot of internal training. So I trained up our inspectors. I was out on the road talking about them. And nothing happened. And it was devastating. And sort of my career moved on, and I went to the other side. So I went into sort of private consulting, and I worked for a consultancy agency. I ran my own consultancy business. Then I've moved into kind of corporate roles. So I've done some work in aviation, and then I worked for the Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, and now I work for the British Standards Institution. And I started at BSI, British Standards Institution, as the global head of health, safety and wellbeing, but that's just extended in the last few months. So I'm actually the global head of human and social sustainability. But a big part of that is still around culture and looking after people. And one of the things I'm really proud of my time at BSI was I launched the world's first training program on ISO 45003 and the world's first certification program on ISO 45003. And I was having seen this sort of just lack of interest around the stress management standards. I was really passionate that an international standard would start to really change the mindset of people and organisations around psychological health and safety. So, huge advocate, a lot of promotion, a lot of work on it. And I'm really delighted to be here to continue that and spreading the good message.
Hey, Kate, can I just do a quick fact check? When did you launch your ISO 45003 training program?
Oh, I can't remember. When was it published? It was 18 months before it was published.
Yeah, so you're...
Are you going to, when did you do yours?
June 8th, 2021.
Yeah, no, ours was before that then.
It was before the standard
was published. Jason.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought like the day it was published, our program came out. So yours came out before it was published.
Yeah, we launched the training program before the official standard came out because the draft was available.
It was available, and that's how we were able to create the content and make it ready.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Just
All right.
You were quick, but you weren't quick enough.
You had a good try, Jason.
Not that it's a competition, but I'd say we've had more people through our training program because it's free, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great program, and the fact it's free is fantastic. So look, from my point of view, it's about getting the message out there, and as long as it's correct and as the right message, then it's all good. Whoever presents it.
Yeah. Well, that's
we
the
were
thing.
just
If you've
first.
Jason, you were the first person to do a video, so you can claim that. The first ones to have a video, and I remember having to going through the training program myself and seeing you come up all the way through the video. So the first video tutorial on the standard.
There you go. So if anyone has any problems with the accuracy of what I presented on that program, blame Joelle, because she actually wrote the content. I'm only the person presenting the content. So yes.
Thank you, Jason.
It was beautiful back colors, everything. It was an experience. So.
We did have someone reach out to us recently around one of the quiz questions, and she wasn't happy that she got it wrong, and she said it should change to reflect what she thought. And then I said, well, no, I've just checked with Joelle, and this is the reason why the quiz question asks this question. Anyway, so Joelle is always right is the short story.
Don't say that. Joelle is eventually right, maybe is the...
Yeah. But
I'm
Kate, we're really privileged to have you on the podcast, obviously, just thinking about the long amount of time that you've been spending in your career focused on health and safety more generally, but psychosocial risk specifically. And, you've been instrumental in trying to, like you say, promote, first of all, the stress management standard and then the ISO 45003 standard as well. So, I cannot think of a better host to replace the amazing Hayley Farrell. So thank you so much again for joining us. And I think all of our people listening to the podcast are going to be, they're going to start fanning over you as well, Kate. Not just Joelle.
I hope so.
Joelle might have some competition now for favourite host of the Psych Health and Safety podcast. It was a clear winner before. So
I'm sure.
Why does no one
Pete's
fan
up there.
over me? I'm not. No, I don't. I don't think I've got any fans.
I think you do. It's a niche. It's a niche within a niche, Pete.
It's a niche within a niche. Okay. Thanks. I feel uplifted now.
So, Kate, as part of your work, particularly with BSI, you've been working with companies implementing ISO 45003, so the international standard for psych health and safety. So what have you observed in how companies are taking that on since the standard was published?
So I think it's really interesting. So we know from all the other standards that are published, there's kind of you actually have kind of a slow growth. So you have early adopters in the first kind of 5 years. So organisations that are more forward thinking, that are more prepared. But it actually usually takes about 5 years. So we're still on that journey, but we have seen incredible take up of ISO 45003. And we've got organisations that are now working to the standard all over the world, which is just amazing. It's so inspiring. But if I reflect, I think some of the observations I've seen were some of the organisations that were interested in, particularly in the first sort of 12 months of it being launched, were organisations that had or were doing a lot of wellbeing, and they thought they were doing wellbeing amazingly well. And they thought that was the answer to all of their problems. And they thought, well, great, we can adopt 45003, we can, demonstrate that we're working to this international standard. And what they found was what they were doing for wellbeing was not psychological health and safety. And this is, I think this is the big challenge. I mean, you've touched on it. We've touched on it before. I'm sure we'll talk about it again during these podcasts. There is a world of difference between what a lot of organisations do on wellbeing, which is often focused on the individual, and what organisations need to do from a psychological health and safety point of view. So it was really interesting to kind of actually see that brought to life. I think as professionals, we see it and we're working with organisations and see it, but to kind of see it reacted against actually organisations looking to implement 45003. So it meant a lot of them had to go away and kind of rethink what they were doing quite fundamentally, and then go on a journey. And that journey can take a little bit of time. Some of those organisations have gone on that journey and have come back and are now implemented 45003. I think some of them are still a bit shocked, if I'm honest, and going, whew, no, because doing the right thing for your people, for your organisation, is really difficult. And a lot of organisations aren't willing to put in that work, if I'm honest. So I think it's, that side of things interesting. But what we have seen, I suppose, on the flip side, on the positive side, is a real growing movement, a real growing recognition that actually organizations do need to do the right thing by their people. There's a whole host of reasons behind that. And therefore, we are seeing organizations go on that journey and really looking to change the culture and the way they work to prevent psychological harm, which is amazing. Pete said it earlier, it's all about prevention. And the more that we can help organizations do that or take even small steps towards that, then, we're making the working lives of millions and millions of people better. So that's got to be something worth fighting for.
Do you need more psych health and safety in your life? Then head over to the FlourishDX Academy for several free on-demand e-learning courses. If you're an internal professional, follow FlourishDX on Eventbrite to register for any of our free fortnightly interactive webinars. Our flagship professional practice program is also exclusively available for internal professionals. The 12-week course blends theory, applied practice, and interaction with other professionals through live lectures and a monthly community of practice session. Find out more about all these learning opportunities or inquire about a bespoke in-house training at the FlourishDX Academy. www.45003.org. Now back to this episode. Yeah, absolutely. And you guys are real trailblazers, obviously, at BSI in this area. You had the first pilot program for ISO 45003 certification. You've obviously had a number of companies through that. We share some of those clients, which is terrific because they obviously have that vested interest in not just meeting the vibe of the standard, but to actually be certified against it to show hey we're actually doing all of this. I'm interested because in Australia we found it was very difficult to get companies to take notice of psychological health and safety and change their behaviour until it became regulated. Now ISO 45003 is a voluntary standard, right, and it's not legislated. There's no requirement to follow that. So what are you finding are the main drivers for why organizations are interested in adopting the standard? And are there any similarities are you seeing in the companies that are adopting the standard?
Yeah, so definitely. So that I think the organizations that it's adopting the standard at the beginning now are organized, and you said the word trailblazer. I think they are trailblazers when it comes to really looking after their people. They are the organizations that are truly committed to doing that, and they want to demonstrate it. They're willing to put in the effort. So that's definitely a theme that's coming through. I think it's interesting. There's obviously, you mentioned about the regulation in Australia. There is regulation in other parts of the world, but it hasn't had the same level of impact. But I think that will change. But what's really interesting now is I've just started to hear from clients that they're starting to see it come through as part of tender requests. So what are you doing in terms of not just health and safety, kind of traditional physical health and safety, but what are organizations doing in terms of psychological health and safety? And particularly big organizations are asking that in their tenders. So I think that's really powerful because that's when you start to see that additional shift change come through. I'm sure, although Pete and I are regulators, I always believe organizations should do the right thing for the right reasons. It's frustrating that they don't, and it's frustrating that we have to have the legislation there. But if there's other levers that are being used to help organizations on that journey, encourage them, push them hard, then I think that's great.
Can I the other thing I need contextualize, when we launched the management standards, it was a risk assessment. That was it. Actually, what happens in any regulatory environment is assess the risk and then put a management system in place to tackle it. 45003 is the management system. Had we launched the standards back when we did 2004, we probably would have had a different outcome. Whereas this actually, as a regulator or as any sort of law enforcement or any sort of enforcement, can look at the standards that are there, and it gives you, in the 45,003, and it gives you direction on what you need to sort of assess against, I guess, doesn't it, Kate? And it's voluntary at the moment. there is this conversation piece, and I know there's a South American country that has put it through as a defined standard, so it's starting, and it wouldn't surprise me once the law comes into play in Australia that you start to see a movement towards that as well.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, fair points, Pete. Kate, what really struck me about what you were just saying is how the requirement around ISO 45003, or demonstration of a, say, psych health and safety management system, being part of tender documentation. I'll have to listen back to episode 2, Joelle, which unfortunately Joelle missed out on. I interviewed Wade Needham for the first time he was on the podcast in episode 2. I think I'd recently been through the process of certification against ISO 27001. Because we're a technology company, we had to get certified. Our customers requested it, right, for our information security management.
Yeah, we shouldn't talk about that because you might not have used BSI.
Happy to come across, like,
when's your renewal up?
we're doing an audit next week, so I don't think we're going to get changing an auditor next week. But we'd been through that process. I was familiar with many requirements and tender documentations, particularly in high-risk industries, that companies had a certified safety management system like 45001. So actually, I think back 3 years ago, had asked Wade, is there going to be a time when we see this push down the supply chain through, a requirement to have this in place when they go to tender? So yeah, it's really interesting to hear that you're now starting to see that take place 3 years, I guess, or 2 or 3 years after the standard came out. I think, other than regulators really forcing it, it's the organisations who are procuring services that have a lot of leverage to kind of encourage the right behaviour.
Yeah, and I think that's it's about the tipping point, right? Like Jason, before the regs came into force in Australia, we were talking with so many companies who recognise the business case, recognise the ROI, recognise it being the right thing to do from an ethical perspective, from an ESG perspective, all those different angles, and they knew it and they wanted to do it, but there were always going to be other priorities that they had to address. And so what the regs did was give them that tipping point to say, yes, now we're going to prioritise this. And so I guess, having those supply chain requirements as well to say, well, if we want to tender for this work, we have to have something in place to show what we're doing. That's kind of a similar type of tipping point, which is, I guess, a commercial rather than a legal tipping point, but still sort of having similar impacts potentially. So, Kate, what have you seen companies doing well in this space?
So, the organisations that have done it really well are the organisations that have started to break down their internal silos. So I think one of the challenges has been that to do psychological health and safety well, you need your health and safety team and your HR teams in particular to work really closely together. Like all health and safety management systems, it's not just the responsibility of those teams, it's the responsibility of the whole organisation. But you do need those teams to work really well together. And I think, there's often tension. There's often a misunderstanding about where they're coming from, and the organisations that have done that really well have broken down those silos. And I was talking to actually the first organisation in the world to get their certification to 45003, which was MCOR here in the UK. I caught up with them a little while ago, and I said, well, you're a couple of years in, what are you seeing? And it was amazing. It gave me goosebumps at the time, and just thinking about it, I've got goosebumps again now. They said it is genuinely starting to change the culture of the organisation in a way that they did not foresee. They were very forward thinking. They were a very human centric organisation. And they'd started that integration before they went on the 45003 journey. But they said it's been an absolute step change again in terms of what they're seeing and the culture that they're creating, because they've got those functions working holistically together rather than in isolation. So I think that's got to be one of the biggest learnings.
We should probably bring them back onto the podcast and ask them about that ourselves, actually, rather than asking you about it.
We should, yeah.
I was going to say examples of what sorts of culture change had occurred, but that's
let's bring them back in, because they had a lot of insights.
You can invite them on, Kate, and you can
I think so. That would be great.
Yeah, Pete had Jonathan on, didn't you, Pete? Pretty sure.
We had Jonathan, didn't we? Way back.
Yes, yeah.
Well, one of us had Jonathan. It's been a while.
We both had Jonathan. I think you had Jonathan first. So, I'll give you that. But no, I mean, Hayley used to work for Jonathan.
I would say, yeah. You had Hayley.
Yeah, it was a great podcast. So, but it is that, I mean, Jonathan will say that, the culture has been impacted, and in a positive way. But what the other thing he did say was it's about sustaining that change. So actually, you get the initial burst of enthusiasm and the culture but you've got to continue putting systems in place to allow the culture to thrive, and it becomes like as we often talk about, just the way we work around here. So that's what we're certainly in health and safety. That's what we're constantly looking for. That actually looking after safety is just normal practice of business. So
it's pleasing to hear that, right? Because that's ultimately the aim of a management system, right? Continuous improvement. So it's not like a once-off intervention. We've done it, and then hopefully we get benefits forever from this. It's like, no, let's go back and do the whole plan, do, check, act. It's great to hear that companies are getting to that level of maturity. I get asked every now and again when I'm on a panel or something, like, what companies are doing this well, and I'm always hesitant to say that any company is doing well, because I still think that there's a lot of improvement left. I think there's companies that are doing elements of psych health and safety or ISO 45003 well, but it's good to hear, Kate, because that's what I've always said is like the marker of doing it well is it's just the way you do business. It's just I think about the same with ISO 27001 for us, right? Like, it's not just policies sitting in a system that no one looks at. It actually changes how we make decisions regarding what sort of data we keep and what sort of protections we have and who has access to what. It changes.
How paranoid we are when we see emails claiming to be from our CTO.
Yeah, it should change behaviour. It's like because some companies go, if I do ISO 45003 and get all these policies in place, are we going to see any ROI? I'm like, well, that's kind of like thinking if you just incorporate, say, 9001 quality management system, and just having a bunch of policies, that you're going to have a more reliable and a better quality product. It doesn't happen by policy. You have to change your behaviour. So it's, again, amazing that MCOR have gotten to that point, Kate, where they're starting to see some of the benefits. Only 2 years in as well, right? It's really kind of probably a short period of time for such a big company.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. They were well ahead of the game, actually, to be honest. But I think it is interesting that they're continuing to see that change. But I think your point about continual improvement, I think, is a really critical one. A management system is a system. So if you're establishing a system, that should drive the change over a period of time. I think there's still risk when it's driven by a single person, if that person leaves, and if there isn't culture buy-in. But I think, just in the same way with kind of traditional health and safety, but I think probably even more so with psychological health and safety, you have to keep watching it because stuff changes. If you go through a merger and acquisition, if you upsize, if you downsize, if you relocate, if you bring in new services, if you bring in new software systems, there's constant risk change in terms of risk profile that's going on in an organization that can have really big impacts from a psychological health and safety point of view, and therefore organizations really do need to keep on top of it. It's definitely, no health and safety is, but psychological health and safety isn't a kind of one and done, and it never will be. So I think that's something that we've still, I think that's part of the learning that we'll see, is how do organizations start to manage that? One of the reasons I liked 45001, which is the overarching health and safety management system, is because it has a big focus on how do you manage change. And we know that change is one of the biggest issues from a psychological health and safety point of view. So, and I haven't still seen organizations that manage change really well. haven't seen it. It just doesn't happen. So I think there's still a lot of learning to be done, but that's, that's good. And if we can help share that during these podcasts, then that's great as well.
It's interesting you bring that up because I was speaking with a partner that uses our product with their clients, and they had said basically if they identify one of their clients or prospective clients are going through a restructure, that would suggest they're not a good candidate for this. And we're like, oh, actually, it's one of the best times to do it. Probably not the best time to introduce it on top of all the other change going on. Probably better to have it in place before you go through the restructure. But, it's actually, one of the most stressful times, right, where work design is changing quite a lot very quickly and not always for the best.
Yeah, I think so. I think, that point is key, is having these systems in place kind of almost before you need them for some of the more dynamic risk. That's always been the point for dynamic risk assessment, and this is the same. And I don't think a lot of organisations are there. A lot of organisations are still reactive. And I think coming back to the earlier question, what about, which organisations are going on this journey? I think, in the first, to begin with, it was the very proactive organisations. We are starting to see some of organisations now who are maybe have been looking for something from a reactive point of view. They've got challenges around recruitment, retention, a lot of issues in terms of staff engagement, like, engagement scores, just going through the floor. And organisations are going, well, what do we do now? We've been doing their yoga. People who know me will say, no, I talk about yoga and yoga. We've been doing these wellbeing initiatives. We've been spending all this money on all of this stuff and it's not working. And that's because it's kind of been the wrong thing. So I think that's the change that I'm starting to see now. The first couple of years, it was very sort of proactive, forward thinking organisations. Now it's organisations that are going on that journey or looking for answers to problems that they haven't been able to answer yet.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing it in the coming years becoming more mainstream, right? Like you say, again, trailblazers, early adopters are what we're seeing at the moment. But 200 more episodes, Joelle, and it might be, why do you guys need to do a podcast about this? Doesn't everyone already know? And aren't they already doing this?
I mean, they're talking about it in America now, so there's hope for the world.
There is hope. Yeah, we've got an American podcast actually on Thursday that we're recording with. So yes, we'll find out all about what's happening in the US in this state. So Kate, you heard a bit about I guess some reflections that Joelle, Peter, and myself had regarding what are some of the things that we've liked about hosting the podcast over the last year or 3 years. I'm interested to know from you, what are you most hoping to achieve as a podcast beyond the obvious of like just keeping Peter in check?
That's just impossible. I'm not even gonna try. I'm not even gonna put that on my list.
I thought her role was just to enhance my aura already. I mean, perhaps I'm wrong. I don't know.
So what are you hoping to achieve, Kate, over the next 12 months yourself as co-host with Pete?
I think continue to spread the good word. For me, if one extra person hears about a psychological health and safety and starts to do something, then that's a step in the right direction. So the more that we can help spread that word, the better. I think more practically, just continue to, I suppose, demystify it and really break down the perceptions and the barriers that there are, that somehow this is difficult or it's complicated or you need to be, a deep, professor in psychology. I want to make sure people and organisations know that this is accessible, that this is just part of health and safety. It's not something different or new, and really help organisations on that journey.
Yeah, and you'll have plenty of opportunities to do that, and hopefully it's more than one person, Kate. We try to do things at scale around here. We don't want to change hearts and minds one person at a time. So we're hoping, we're obviously putting on our biggest community event ever in June in Sydney. Pete's going to be there. Joelle and I are going to be there, of course. What do we need to do to get you over there, Kate? Given you just said you're in a global role, right? There's plenty of reasons to travel to Sydney in June.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope to get over there. I just don't know at the moment. We've got very tight sustainability targets, so we're very restricted in the amount of travel that we can do, which is great for the planet. So I'll have to see what.
Just buy a carbon offset, Kate. That's what we all do. So.
Well, we'll see. I'll work on it. You know, now I'm officially co-hosting, then maybe this is an area that I can help justify the ticket.
Yeah, and fly economy rather than first class, Kate. Like that generally keeps.
I was to say I wish I'd ever got to fly first class. I haven't, not once. I've had a business upgrade, I think, a couple of times in all the years of flying. Otherwise, it's economy all the way. Luckily, I have the advantage that I'm relatively petite, so it's not too crippling.
And there is a direct flight to Perth from London, so you can go to Perth first, visit us in our office, and then come across with the team and we'll work really hard at the conference in June.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it looks amazing conference. If I can make it happen, I will. I was looking at the latest updates. You've got amazing speakers, and it looks like a great couple of days. So yeah, let's see what I can do.
It's our dream conference, Kate. So it will only be better if you can make it. So let's continue to work on it. Listeners, you know what to do.
No pressure.
Yeah, email dan@flourishdx.com. Who's your boss, Kate, at BSI? What's his email? Her email?
Her email.
Yeah, her email. Let's distribute that. Everyone, let's start a write-in.
Start a lobbying group.
Well, Joelle, I think that pretty much brings us to the end of this episode, right?
I believe it does.
So under an hour, can you believe it? An episode with Peter Kelly on that we get done in under an hour.
I mean, wonders will never cease, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, he's been very honourable today and let me kind of do the talking. I'm sure I will have to keep an eye on the time on future episodes going forward.
Listen, I'm at your mercy. So maybe, and I know it'd be great. Actually, it's great to see what we're going to do over the next year. And I think that's the really important thing, because we're both committed to it. I mean, we wouldn't have done this for the amount of time that we have if we weren't committed to making changes to work. So there's me being serious for once. Looking forward to it. It's going to be great. Hope to obviously see you guys out there in June, in 15 degrees, which is winter in Australia. So it'd be pretty good, so.
Joelle, any final words?
I'd just like to say thanks to Kate for taking on the challenge and the opportunity. And I'm the one who goes through the episodes and does any edits and looks for the social clips. So I look forward to listening to your episodes.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you to both Peter and Kate. Thanks again to Joelle for 200 amazing episodes. Thanks for being my co-host. Looking forward to another 200. Can't go anywhere, Joelle. You're locked in. Sorry. And thanks to our listeners who've been joining us on this journey, the guests that have been on as well. We again hope to see as many of you guys as possible in June at the Sydney conference. It will be a great opportunity to catch up with as much of the community as possible. So that brings us to the end of this episode. We'll catch you next time on the Psych Health and Safety Podcast. See you for another 200 episodes.
You've been listening to the Psych Health and Safety Podcast. To stay up to date with the latest on psychological injury prevention, follow Flourish DX on LinkedIn and subscribe to the Psych Health and Safety Podcast at www.psychealthandsafety.com.